Good morning. Okay, yes, sure thing. Thank you for that beautiful song. I was thinking as she sang about the bowing the knee, everyone will eventually bow the knee. Every knee will bow. But every knee will bow, but there's only two reasons they will bow. Or two completely separate groups will bow the knee. Those who trust him and those who absolutely fear and have absolutely nothing else to do but obey. They will bow the knee as well. And so we'll look into that a little bit more in a few minutes. Thank you very much for all your kindness, your goodness, your generosity, your friendliness. My goodness, what a blessing. We do come back and feel like we're coming home. And thank you very much for at least making us feel that way if you don't think it. I think you do. But anyway, so I have a bunch to do in the time that I have, and so want to make the best use of it that I can. Many of you have said, in fact, one or two actually called me Danny before they corrected themselves. And so my wife and I have 4 children who you'll see, but Danny, some of you know Danny because he was here years ago. So I texted him. It just occurred to me while we were singing. And so I texted Danny, who's in Spain. I said, hey, would you like to send a quick greeting to Faith, to the congregation at Faith? And so he sent one. It's 48 seconds long, and I don't know what it says, but he says I can play it. He says it's a super short hi. So I'm going to play it in front of here. Hopefully you can hear it. Okay, this is from our son Danny, who is with us in the ministry there, and hopefully it'll be hearable. Okay, hang on, let me...
Saying, hey, Danny, I'm about to start at Faith.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Good morning, this is Danny.
Can you hear?
My dad just sent me a message saying, hey, Danny, I'm about to start at Faith. And I am assuming this is Faith Baptist Church in Jefferson City. I was trying to think what other faith it could be, but I'm assuming it's that one. So Pastor Campbell and friends there at Faith, hope you all are doing very well. Hope you'll have a wonderful Sunday. I was actually thinking back, and my internship there with you guys was 13 years ago, so it's crazy how much has happened since then, but I remember those days fondly, and appreciated getting to know so many of you, and really enjoyed Pastor Campbell's visit. I guess it was last year already. But anyway, hope you all have a wonderful Sunday, and hopefully my family and I can make it up there at some point. So y'all take care and have a great day. Bye.
Okay, so that was from Danny. Okay, let me see. Let me go first of all and show you some pictures from the ministry, okay? Some of the pictures you've seen before, some of you, because the old pictures don't change, but they serve to give context. So I will run through them as quickly as possible, and then we'll talk about a few of them as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to use this mic over here, and first of all, which is the button I need to push.
Pointed at the camera back there.
Yeah. Not getting anything. Working? Oh, there it went. I don't know if that was you or me. Was that you? Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So this is our reason for being here, and one of the main reasons is to thank you. Okay, thank you for over 30 years of faithful support. We remember so well our times in the early years with Pastor David and Denise Cross. We miss them dearly and followed that very closely for many years. And we remember the old building and then the double services. We remember first time coming on furlough. It must have been in 92, must have been that time. We came back to visit our churches. We had 1, 2, 3. We had our 3 boys. We still didn't have Rachel then, I don't think. We had our 3 boys, or maybe we did. No, it had been 3 boys. And so we get to the little room that y'all had there right by the tracks, on the bottom of the church, around the corner there. And they had this huge fruit basket and a fancy welcome and gifts. It was a wonderful, wonderful first time we'd had, I think, anything like that, where we were given the welcome. And so it's been like that for over 30 years from Faith. So we're very grateful. Let's see if this works consistently. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through these really quickly. These are the 4 treasures that God gave us. We had one when we were here first, David. And so David, Danny, Mark, and Rachel, 3 of them. The third 3, Danny, who you just heard, was born there in Spain. And then in the mid-'90s, well, latter 90s really, late 90s, the Lord sent us this couple, Juan and Tete, our missionaries from Mexico to Spain, and ended up coming to work with us in the Basque Country. And they've been with us for, how long is that, honey? 28 years now, I think. And so they're faithful workers. We have other co-workers as well, but they are the ones that have been with us from the beginning. This is to show you, at first, the ministry went very small, very slowly, and those of you who know this is, others have seen it, I understand that, but this is the way our service would have been. We'd been there 10 years, 8 in that place, and so it was a very tiny congregation. Most of the people in that picture are missionaries, okay? And then go to 2002, which is 10 years after, and most of the people in that service are missionaries or missionary kids, okay? But then the Lord did move things greatly in the 2000s. There was a lot of immigration, and people were coming, being saved, and so nowadays we have a different building and a completely, pretty much a full congregation, thriving congregation that we love and actually miss today. They've had their services many hours ago, but the Lord has blessed us abundantly. And this is a men's meeting I had earlier the year. We started a Saturday Bible study every Saturday, and so that's just one of those services or meetings that we had on Saturday. This is Mimi teaching the ladies' main class, and then this shot is actually of our son David's church. He's on the coast, about 30 minutes away from us. And the one preaching is one of the young men from our church. So we're training leadership, and it is our goal to train the leadership to be able to carry on and take off and to move on forward, eventually into a step where we have trained leadership all the way up to the top, as in all the way into the pastoral positions. That's still not happened, but we have trained believers now in almost every part of the ministry. Let's see, here's Mimi with one of the young ladies who has learned, she's taught the flute too, and they play along with the services. So we have some young people. Here's 3 young people who came back from camp, solid young people, love the Lord, have a wonderful testimony. We have great hopes for them. This was in May. We baptized the 4 believers in the middle of the picture. Each one of them, I could give you their story, and it's just unbelievable. Well, it is, and it's believable by us, maybe unbelievable by the world, how God has changed each one of their lives. And so they all took the step of faith in baptism, and some with their struggles, but they continue to grow in the Lord. And those are some of my other co-workers there. This is the farmhouse that Pastor Mark mentioned that God gave us. That's the way it was when we got it in the year 2000, and it was unusable. If it looks old outside, it was older inside. Nobody had lived there for many years, and it was dangerous inside just because everything was so old. It's a lot bigger than it looks, right, Mark? Yeah, it is. It looks not that big, but there are 10 large, by European standards, large rooms in it that we use. You'll see some of those. This is the farmhouse from a drone's view out in front. And if some of you have mentioned that you follow the videos, I'll talk a little bit about those later, the video reports. If you have been following the video reports and know about the landslide and the track hoe and all of that stuff, you can see the landslide on the left. And that's no surprise to you if you've been following those.
This is from the front as well. You can see it right smack in the middle. Okay, so if you're there, Mark, did you get to climb that, or you did? Okay, I couldn't remember. Anybody who wants to can come and climb to the mountain behind the farmhouse and touch the mushroom, and if they do, they get to sign the notebook that I have that has over 750 signatures. It's no simple hike. It's a pretty sturdy climb, very, very steep at some points, and so, but a lot of people do it, and that's what you can see from the top. And if you look at in the far back, far right, you can see our town. That's where we live, a little town of 1,500 people. One of the 18 towns that our church ministers to directly would be our Jerusalem, so to speak. And then if you look at the bottom right, you can see the little dot there, the little orange speck. That's the farmhouse. Okay? So that's the climb. It's a good one. Okay. So, as I've often said and probably said here, when the Lord takes over something, it changes usually. And when the Lord takes over a life, our lives change, right? And it even happens when he takes over an old building that's 300 years old. And so this is one of the inside rooms that I was telling you about. This is on the bottom level. And that ground there is very uneven. It's mountain and it's manure from way back when. And it was just dry. Didn't smell or anything. But that's what the floor was, all in the farmhouse on the bottom level. And that's where that was for cattle, and you can see the troughs on the left, and you can't see the right one, but the cattle would be in there lined up on both sides all the way down with their tails in the middle for obvious reasons. And then, so that's where they ate. That was a dining room for cattle. And nowadays, this is what it feeds, or what we use it for. Okay, that's the same room, but feeding a bunch of people who came for our intensive institutes. That we do on Saturdays several times a year. So everything in that room has changed, and all of it has been because of mission teams and my dad back in the early years, but then mission teams that came and helped us do the work to make it usable. Then, this is right above that room. This is the room on top of it when the roof was being completely changed. You can see all the tile on the floor, and that is what we call our Abraham room. And if you read the Ayer the Miracle book that Pastor Mark referred to, that's the story, you'll know why we call it the Abraham room. And nowadays, the Abraham room is used for almost everything in the way of teaching. That was taken a month ago at our last intensive institute. And again, you can see a lot of changes. And there are about 60 people, 60 believers there, adult believers, who came for one solid day of Bible teaching on the book of Exodus. And we have wonderful, wonderful institute. We've had 57 of these over the last 20 years. And so they're an excellent ministry that we enjoy, and we have another one scheduled for January. Okay, one of the things that God did that we had no idea he was going to do, it was not on our charts or our goals or anything, was that of hosting mission teams. This is a mission team that came in July they're from Davison, Michigan, and they are our mission team I think they're number 70. And we've had over 70 because we had one after that. They're teams that come from churches. Now, this one happens to be a youth team. We've had youth teams, we've had choir teams, we've had work teams, we've had adult teams, we've had mixture teams of everything. We've had all kinds of mission teams. None of this was anything we had ever thought about in the early years. It's just one of those ministries that God brought to us. And so we have many, many friends through these mission teams, and we love them because they are brought to us by the Lord, and they help us move forward in the ministry. They help at working there at the farmhouse, but also they dive into the ministry, the weekend ministries, and get some sightseeing in. Anyway, it's an exciting time to have these mission teams come over. This is our missionary teen retreat. Many of you have heard of that, and Pastor Mark has been there. That was our 17th missionary teen retreat last December, the first one after COVID, and we've done them for 17 years. Those are the young people who came. Pastor Mark is right there in the back under the double L's of his name, and he gave an excellent series of lessons on the life of David, which you have probably heard, I would guess, maybe, at some point. At any rate, they were an excellent series that was very, very useful and very good for the kids. So we are preparing for our 18th now as I speak, and it'll be starting, believe it or not, in just a little over a month. We have a number of new missionary kids coming from that just have heard about it, and so we have no idea how many will come. A fair number of missionary families in Europe left the field during COVID. Just for whatever reason, it just was the time for them, and they left. So we lost a number of MKs who are no longer on the field, but there still are, and we'll see. We never know how many are there, but God always provides funds through friends. They pay. Of course, they have to fly in, almost all of them. That's their biggest expense, and then they pay kind of a registration fee or whatever that we have to cover the expenses, and every year, people give gifts for the missionary teen retreat and send them in for us. And then during the retreat, the last day of the retreat, we give back money to all of the missionary families, sometimes covering their entire airline tickets, and even one was almost free for the entire. I mean, everything was free because friends of the missionary teen retreat send in funds. So that's a huge blessing to us, and of course to the families, because some of them get reimbursed many hundreds of dollars that they've paid for the flights. So thank you for praying for our 18th, which will be this next December, and our guest speaker is a friend who is a pastor in inner city church in Philadelphia. Okay, this is just another picture of another event. This is our apologetics retreat that we do every Easter, and that is our son David, our oldest son. He's teaching a class in that retreat. To give you an idea of the different things that we do for that we use the farmhouse for. The farmhouse is not our primary ministry. I mean, we're church planners, and that's our main ministry. But God gave us the farmhouse. And God has done everything at that farmhouse. He has supplied all the need. He started the thing. I mean, it's just amazing what He has done. And so, yes, it is a major instrument of our church as well as the churches around the country for these different retreats. This is a picture of about 40,000 gospel postcards almost every year. We send out 40,000. Now it's at 42,000 postcards to that many homes in the area. And the little towns that we have very few, but there are bigger towns and bigger cities, and David is starting to send to his. We're hoping this year to send them to a church plant that's up on the coast, a different one. And so I still haven't even sent out the information yet, but I will be this next week, because people or friends around, mostly in the United States, will sponsor these different towns. And they will send in maybe $50 will cover many of the small towns, and that covers the expense of the postcard and the postage to get those in every home. Some towns are bigger. Larger towns will take maybe $200, $300, but we get these postcards into the homes. It's a Christmas postcard with the gospel on the back in every possible way for them to connect with us and to connect with a church that preaches the Bible and the gospel. And so that is one of our gospel efforts or outreaches that gets to many, many homes. And then this picture, Mimi's in the middle. We have one of our coworkers is on the right there, and the lady in red, her name is Esther, and we would appreciate your prayers for her. She is actually from Bolivia, but lives in a city about 50 minutes from us. It's the capital, has the parliament of the Basque Country in it. The city is called Vitoria. And she comes to our church. She gets on a tram, then a train or a bus, and then walks all the way. Takes her up to 2 hours just to get to the services, and then another 2 to get back, and sometimes even more depending on the connections. And the reason she comes is because she says in Vitoria there is no church anything like ours at all. There just isn't. It's a city of 120,000 more or less. And so we're praying, she's praying, and we soon hope to start a Bible study with her somewhere as soon as God opens the door, and that will just lead into another church plant, Lord willing, in a city that really needs it. So if you'll pray for her, her name is Esther, exactly the same as the biblical lady, the biblical book. And so that's a big thing we're looking forward to and praying for. Okay, rapidly, let me finish off with our children. This is David, Danny, Mark, and Rachel again. And now, this is, of course, 30 years after that picture, I guess, more or less. That is David, our oldest son. His wife is Raquel. She is the daughter of a Baptist pastor on the Mediterranean coast. And so both of them are first childs, and she's Spanish, and of course he's American. They have 3 grandchildren. So we now have grandchildren on that side of the ocean, which is nice to have. These 3, the little one is our newest. And so David and Raquel are in the Seaport Baptist Church. He's the pastor there. They're doing a great job, and it is growing already. And they're just seeing a lot of good growth and visitors. And so we're thankful to the Lord for their ministry, of course. And then Danny, our second, who you just heard from. This is Danny and his wife Jordan, and their little children, Clara and Gabe, and they're actually, that picture's actually taken right in front of our church. They live 5 minutes from us down the road, down a curvy mountainous road like y'all have here, and they are in our ministry, and Danny is involved in everything, and he's very digital kind of person, but he also is into CNC and the 3D printing, and he's designed his own weed eater that he runs from his glasses through who knows what, and the thing goes all over the place. It's a 4-wheel drive weed eater. It's crazy. His idea is to cut the grass at the farmhouse from his house. I don't know if it'll work, but he tries. Anyway, he does all kinds of things like that. And then our third son is Mark. Mark married Andrea. Andrea is an MK from Spain. Her parents, Dr. David Bell, is from here, from Greenville, and her mother, Maribel, is a Spanish girl who was saved in the ministry that Mimi's parents started, and I think your mother led her to the Lord, right, when she was a little girl. So their daughter married Mark, and so Mark and Andrea live in Greenville. They're active in their church, and have the Lord has just blessed them very, very much, and we will see them this evening. That's one reason for furlough, you know, okay? Okay, we get to spend some time with them. And then Rachel is our daughter. She married Ethan, and they have 4 grandchildren, 4 of our grandchildren. They are our grandchildren, not their children. You understand that probably. If you don't, well, you will one day. But anyway, so they live 1 hour south of Greenville, and we see them as much as we can during the week on these short furloughs that we have here. So God has been very good to us. They too as well are faithful and active in their church, and we're very grateful to God for that. Then my parents retired from Spain after 42 years on the field about, I don't remember how long it was, 8 or 9 years ago. And they live in Washington, state of Washington, with my brother. And God has been very good to them. They have a very good situation there for their retirement. And then Mimi's dad lives in Greenville, and again we see him often these days. And Mimi is able to have breakfast with him almost every morning. Her mother died 3 years ago, and they were on the field for 52 years, I believe, something like that, in Mexico, where Mimi was born, Chile, and then most of their ministry was in Spain. And he's 89, doing very well, and he climbed that mountain last month, believe it or not. I don't know how long he took, but he and Mimi went up there, and yeah, he's got the record, I guarantee you that. But anyway, so, okay, I think that's it for the report. Let me switch to the platform, or to the pulpit, okay? Y'all will turn this off. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you a little bit of a glimpse of the ministry, because that is part of Faith Baptist Church's ministry. If you are a part of this congregation and you give to missions and you pray for the missionaries whenever that comes up, then that's part of your ministry, and those are answers to your prayers.
That's important. And we appreciate very much everything you do for your missionaries. You are very, very gracious to us. So thank you very much. That's one of the main reasons that we're here. Okay, I would like to explain a few things on the back, and then we'll go to the word for a little bit. A little bit. My goodness. Yeah. Okay. Let's make it quick. There's the typical prayer cards and so forth. There are a few books. Let me explain really quickly what they are. And please take one, okay? If you want to leave some cash for it, there's a suggestion there. Actually, I didn't put it up. $5 will cover all of the books, any of the books. So, but there's a basket there. But if you can't or don't, whatever, please take a book, okay? You're very, very good to us and very kind to us, and I'd like for you to take whatever you want, okay? So first is Inner Peace. It's a tiny little booklet that is the story of Nicodemus. And we give it almost everywhere we go. Anybody who serves or, waiters or serves us in any place, nobody ever says no to a book when you give it to them, a little booklet. At least I haven't known that. I've given out over 400 like this, and only one time was I rejected, and I'm almost positive there was a Jehovah's Witness, and they can't. But everyone else has said, almost everyone not only says thank you, but they say, I love to read. I'll read it, and I'll read it today, or I'll read it as soon as I get off of work. So if you want to, it's a good way to give out the gospel. Then the Ayer de Miracle is the story of that farmhouse, and we call it God's farmhouse. If you read the story, you'll call it God's farmhouse and not ours, okay? Because only God could do that. We have a new edition of the book, and it's new in that it has an update, and the story didn't change, by the way. And it has an update, but it also has pictures in the back. So if you're interested in that, that's good. And then we have another one, which is called The Joy of Missions, written by my father-in-law, who was in those last pictures. He was a missionary. They were missionary, like I said, for many decades. And he has a very good sense of humor. And so he wrote, there are 42, actually this is a new edition, has a couple of extra stories in it. But anyway, there are over 40 stories from 50 plus years of missions, and they all have a touch of humor in them. And so if you're interested in that, those are back there. And then the book that Pastor Mark mentioned is called The Wonder of Prophecy. And I would love for you to take one. I've got enough. Just take it, okay? And as a gift, we would love to be able to, in a sense, minister to you or serve you or be a blessing to you after we're gone. So that's one way we can do it. And then, oh yeah, before I forget, there is pastors will often ask me, one way or another, what can we do better as a supporting church? Is there anything that we can do better than we do? And I've thought of that over the years and never really had too much of an answer. But recently I've come up with a good answer, I think. And so this is it, for whatever it's worth. As far as I'm concerned, this is my personal opinion, the best thing that a congregation can do for us, better perhaps than they did before, was to sign up and receive our communication either by email or by WhatsApp or the YouTube channel, because you will be connected with our ministry. Some of you already are. I know that because of the questions you've been asking me today or mentioning today. But we send out almost every week some kind of report. Often it's a video report, pictures, audio report, or whatever. And so you're very close to the ministry. So if you'll sign up on the email list, if you have WhatsApp or are willing to download the free app, I prefer WhatsApp. I got your Pastor Mark on it finally. And he communicates back with me. It's very simple. It's a very, very easy texting. It's much better than just SMS texting. I guarantee you that. But if you're interested in that, if you'd prefer to have the WhatsApp, then instead of your email or both, you can put email, then you can put your phone number on there, and I'll contact you, and we'll do it that way. At any rate, that communication between us is what I think makes the difference between one church and another. So, for whatever it's worth, if you're willing to do that, just print it clearly so that I can get it down right, because if I don't, you won't get anything, okay? Okay, I'm going to leave it at that then, and if you have any questions, why, just holler at us after the service. We're in no hurry, and we'd like to answer those, okay? Why don't we pray, and then we'll go to the Word for the last few minutes that we have, and I trust it'll be a blessing as well. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for this opportunity to be back with the Campbells and the Faith congregation. Thank you so much for their ministry to us. You know that we are very grateful for it, but we're also grateful to you because you make it all happen. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here, they wouldn't be here, nobody would be here. We owe everything we have, we owe everything we are to you. And we thank you this morning. We praise you and glorify you with the voices that you've given us, with the minds that you have given us that can communicate with you. And we simply say, with all that we know how to do, or how we know how to do it, we praise you with all that we are. And we thank you. And we look forward to glorifying you for the rest of eternity. Help us as we go to your word. I pray that you would make it clear to us, and that we would take away from your scriptures some more, as we've already had this morning, some good teaching. Take some more truth in our hearts that will help us live for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, I forgot. I am going to use this, the pointer, because we're going to go to a scripture. If I say, give me a verse on trusting the Lord, what would you say? What verse would you say? Proverbs 3, I've heard several. Proverbs 3, what verses? 5 and 6. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Okay, so these are some of the most memorized verses of the Old Testament. And many of you have them memorized. And so for the minutes that we have, I want us to go and look at those two verses. Even though we have to go to a certain degree fast, I don't want us to go fast. I want us to go slowly. Because sometimes we read things that we've read so many times in our lives that we don't even think about what we're reading. And so I'd like for us to do that. And so this is the passage. That's the verse up there, if you probably have it memorized. But anyway, it's in Proverbs, and it's chapter 3. So let's read together, if you would read with me, or quote with me, this verse out of Proverbs. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." This morning's Bible lesson here in the class that Dr. Manley had was so close to this that I thought, when's he going to go to that verse? When's he going to go to that verse? Well, he went all over, and he didn't go straight to that verse, but he taught on trusting the Lord and mentioned it very, very often, as he taught from mainly Psalm 37, delight thyself also in the Lord. So what I want to do, in just the minutes that we have, I want to see this verse in three quick sections, okay? This is the verse as we would read it, but if we slow down, whoops, yeah, I almost did the same thing. Let me see if I can get it. Could you help me get to the next one? I'm not getting there. Okay, first of all, we're going to see trust in the Lord, the basic command, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. We're going to see it together with, in all thy ways acknowledge him. It's saying the same thing in a different way. Trust in the Lord. Then, the next slide, we're going to see, can I have the next one? There should be another one. Yeah, we're going to see, and lean not unto thine own understanding. We're going to see why that's there. And then finally, the final slide, we'll see what's left, of course, in yellow. And he shall direct thy paths. What does it mean to trust the Lord in all thy ways? We understand the concept of trust. Dr. Manley said this morning, he had, I think it was a quote, at least it was one of parts of his title. He said it's a definite act, that of trusting God. A definite act. It is a choice of the mind to trust God. When? When should we trust God? What does it say? It says, with all thine heart, that's the inside, that's our mind, but it's supposed to be in all thy ways. Think about it. Who do you talk to first in the morning when you wake up? Well, God, that's a good one, but I mean, maybe even yourself before God, right? And it's hard to distinguish those two. But when you wake up, and hopefully it is, Lord, thank you for this day. I want to trust you today. And then life expands as you get out of bed. And first you're in your mind, okay? Trusting God with yourself, in your own mind. You talk with yourself all day long, right? Do you? Or is it just me? I think we all do, right? We talk with ourselves from the moment we awake till we put our head on the pillow. We're talking with ourselves. But then as we go out of the bed, then we're with normally, in most cases, we're with our family. Trusting the Lord with your family in every issue of family. Isn't it true that many times in family we break down in our trust? Do we not? We fall flat on our faces in our family context. Trusting the Lord in all thy ways. You leave the family and then where are you? You're out on the street, maybe you're first with your neighborhood. How about trusting with your neighbors? Well, here in the States it's a little different. We live in an apartment and we have neighbors all around us, all the time. But you still have neighbors, most of you, right? And trusting the Lord with every neighbor. What does that mean? And then you get on the highway. And then where do you trust? Or do we forget to leave the trust at home? Trusting the Lord on the highway is quite an issue, right? With the crazy drivers out there, maybe. And learning to trust the Lord even as we leave our private place. And then we get to work. What about your coworkers? How do you trust the Lord in the workplace? Is there any need to trust the Lord at the workplace? Yeah? No? Yeah? Probably so, right? And then you can think of the other areas as well. When you're out shopping, when you're out wherever, traveling. Trusting the Lord in all thy ways. The command is to apply your mind all day. To apply all your mind all day. To basically have a conversation, an ongoing conversation with God all day long. Not an easy thing. Not an easy thing. But it is something that we cultivate as we grow in the Lord. And I know many of you know exactly what I'm talking to, but maybe there's someone you live with yourself. And you interact with others, but you live with yourself. You don't live with God. That's a huge difference. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. And then notice in red, there's a negative there. Lean not unto thine own understanding. What does that mean? Don't trust yourself. But we do. In any argument I'm with, or in, who's right? Yeah. That's by default. We are right, and the others are wrong. That's the whole reason we're having an argument. And what does the Bible say? If you're going to trust the Lord, one of the things you're going to have to keep in mind is the negative part is be very skeptical of your own plans and of your own thinking and of your own way of doing things. We can't dive into it, but there are many applications to this. When we went to the mission field, we were here first in 1989. You all started supporting us in 1990. In 1989, we presented a whole bunch of goals for the ministry and specifics and whatnot. They didn't happen. They didn't. I mean, we have an independent Baptist church planted, and we're going forward with that, but that's the only thing. What happened? Well, you hope, right, that when you take on missionaries and add them to your missions family, you hope that they are trusting the Lord, right? As they go to the field? I hope so. I mean, we should be. So what happens when we go to the field and trust in the Lord? What should happen is that God's will is done, not ours. Because we go with a lot of ideas and a lot of plans, and they're not bad to have at all. Even in the Bible we see. But God has a way of changing plans. He has a way of changing all of your plans many times. And so, just to say it quickly, and I'll move on to the next because of time, but the ministries along through these 30 plus years, the ministries that I thought would prosper didn't. They died off, and they were mine. They were my ideas, my really neat plans and projects. But some ministries that I never really thought of at all are today the ones that are flourishing and are thriving. Why? Because they were God's, not ours. Lean not unto thine own understanding. He throws it in there, take it for what it's worth. Be careful, be skeptical about your own plans, and be willing to let them go if and whenever God says, you know what, not that, this. Not there, over there. Because he will do it if you trust him. And you don't lean, by leaning means you don't insist on your own understanding. You don't insist on your way of doing it. He will change. And he will do, and what he does will be glorious. Okay, go to the end. The last one is, he shall direct thy paths. There's so much we could say there. That word, though, direct, is a good translation. Some other translations use other words, but the word basically means three things. Smooth, to make straight, or to make right. And I was thinking through that, what in the world does that mean? Smooth, we often say, we should never tell people get saved and everything, all your problems are going to be solved. And the road's going to be slightly downhill, paved, and beautifully painted. Everything's going to be, we don't say that. Why? Because that's not what happens. But the word does mean smooth, among other things. And it's an excellent verb because this is a proverb. He's not saying this is exactly what happens. You can't lock it into a box. It has its perfect interpretation through the meaning of the word. But sometimes when you trust the Lord, he does make your way smooth, doesn't he? And at other times, you may have obstacles, but you know exactly what you need to do. You have no doubt about it because you've trusted in him. You've not leaned on your own understanding, and he's made it very clear what is right and what is straight. And that's what he promises to do. The smooth one had me stumped for a little bit, but then I thought, you know what? Has it not happened to you that you're driving into an appointment, you're running very close on time, and you're thinking, where on earth am I going to park? That is an insane place to find parking. And you get there, and there is a parking spot right in front of where you need it. Has that ever happened to you? Something similar to that? Sometimes God makes the path smooth. We went to Milwaukee last week for a missions conference, and we got on the plane. We had two flights up, 2 flights down. And on the longer ones, I decided I'd pay a little extra money to get a little bit so we could be together for sure and so forth. But on the shorter trip, the first one, I said, I'm not paying $20 a piece just to make sure that we're seated. It's a short flight. Nah, we'll just go wherever they tell us to, And so we get on the plane. About the first thing that comes over the intercom, after we decided that, it looked pretty full. But anyway, the first thing was, is there anybody who would like to sit by the exit where there's extra leg room? We have 2 seats. And I said, I'll offer. She said, yeah, we were actually going to see if you two wanted to. And so we got extra seat, extra leg room, had a wonderful trip. God sometimes does that. Not always, but he does it. And when he does it, we need to be very quick to say, Lord, thank you. You did that. That was wonderful. And you made my path smooth. He does that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. All the way through the day, all of your heart. Be skeptical of your own ideas and your own devices. Don't push them. And he shall direct thy paths. Let me end because of time. I've got 1 minute. Let me end with a few observations of things that we've learned as we've trusted the Lord over the past 33 years there in Spain. These are things that we have learned and are learning, which means we haven't learned them entirely, but we're in the process, okay? And maybe you are too, okay? So see what you think. There are 4 of them that I'm going to highlight this morning. First of all, I've learned that God is not in as much of a hurry as I am. Does that make sense? Man, I've learned that, or am learning. It's still learning. I mean, it's still true. But he is not nearly as much of a hurry as I was. Can you think of a character in the Bible who might, be able to sign off on that one? I can think of several, right? Think of David. Not crowned, but anointed king. Joseph. Moses. It just seems like that's something that God wants to teach us all. We are in a hurry, but he is not. So that was one lesson. Then another one, and I think you've heard this one before as well, but I'm learning that God loves to surprise. He loves to surprise. Most of what we're doing at the farmhouse, well, I'll say this, everything we're doing at the farmhouse was never on our radar when we were here 33 years ago. We didn't even think about a farmhouse, much less all the ministries that we have. All of those have been surprises that God has brought our way and prospered, and they're going today. So if you trust in the Lord with all your heart, all your waking hours, he will surprise you. COC, we say in Spanish. Yes or yes. He will. You can bank on it. Third, God prospers the gospel seed in his own mysterious way. You give out a gospel tract, and most of the time you have no idea what else ever happened after you gave it out. Every once in a while you get feedback, but not normally. And we give it in faith. We have a young man who does our sound booth at the ministry there. His name is Young. He's all full of signs of the world before he was saved. And he fell in love with one of the young ladies in our church who, she will admit, foolishly was in the world and she was far from God. Anyway, he started coming to church. Started showing interest. I could see his interest. And then eventually, this was, 9 years ago or so, 10 years ago, I led him to the Lord in my car. He was baptized. And I married Yon and Vero 1 week after their son was born. Okay? So you can do the numbers and understand what all was going on here. Mimi and I poured our lives into this young couple, and over a period of a year and a half, it just died out and they were gone. And we thought, that was a waste. Well, several years ago, she started coming back. They had divorced and everything. She started coming back, and then all of a sudden, who's coming? He's coming, and the little boy's coming. He started coming back, and after a while, several months later, they had been coming faithfully to everything, all of the Sundays. So I talked with them, and eventually we had a special session, and they They apologized to the church for their testimony and kept on growing, and now they're just both fully active in our ministry. Well, he gave his first testimony in church a few months ago. And with this, I'm going to race through it and then I'll stop, okay? So he's saying that when he was a little boy, his parents took him to the capital city of San Sebastian, beautiful city, and they were walking down the streets of that city, and they passed a beggar on the sidewalk. And so his parents gave him a coin to give to the beggar and put in his basket, or whatever he had there. And so Yon, as a little boy, took the coin, gave it to the man, and the man said, "Que Dios te bendiga," which translated is, "May God bless you." Here he is in his 30s, and he says, "I never forgot that phrase." I don't know who that beggar was. I don't know if he was a believer. I'm thinking he might have been. I don't know. But he dropped a seed having no idea that God was in that little scene right there. And that little boy, through all the mess of the world and everything that he grew up in, would one day give testimony to something so tiny, such a tiny little scene that lasted seconds. That's the power of the gospel. That's the power of the gospel. It's the power of the truth. Because you could say, well, that's not the whole gospel. Well, let's say the truth, okay? At least. And then finally my fourth one sort of feeds off of that one. And the fourth lesson is, nothing unites ethnic groups like the gospel. Now, y'all live in an area where you have some diversity, I'm sure, and I know, and there is some I've seen. But where we are, in our church on a Sunday morning, we will have at least 15 nationalities in our service. From Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Africa, South America, and North America, believers are coming every Sunday, and they will be in our services. And you would never know, except for the externals, you would never know that they were from different countries or different nationalities. Absolutely impossible, because as you scan the conversations between the services, everyone is fellowshipping with everyone as if they were a spiritual family. And they are. It's wonderful. And whenever people come to visit us, they often speak of that. It just shocks them, because sometimes you live in a community where there aren't that many, but we don't. And while the world screams about how much maybe their sports and how unified everybody is, we know how unified they are. Yeah, just let one score one more goal than the other one's thought, and you'll see how unified everybody is. No. At church, in the gospel, the Lord brings together hearts, and all the nations are one in Christ. And that's a beautiful thing to see, and it's a beautiful thing to experience. And it is a powerful argument for the truth and the power of the gospel. Because it's not fake. Nobody's in there trying to make this happen. It just happens because God makes it happen. So, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, all the day, in everything. Careful with your own understanding, with your own ideas, and he will direct your paths. And you will know it, and you'll be glad. Okay, God bless you. Thank you, Pastor Mark.